Hello.
Hi,
How are you today?
I'm doing all right. How are you?
I'm doing okay. Sun is shining, but it's really warm outside. So,
Yeah, you'll have that in the summertime.
well, yes. How are you feeling emotionally today and
Pretty
about
good.
this interview?
I'm fine.
You're fine.
Yeah,
Okay. Do you need anything? Are you comfortable? Do you need any water?
I'm fine. I mean, I could take a water.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. And you've received the consent to interview form and fill that out?
Yes.
Okay. So I've developed some insightful questions that should make it interesting. So should we get started?
Sure.
Okay. So the first question is, do you understand the nature of this assignment?
Vaguely. It's obviously your assignment, so I just know what you've told me about the interview, and that you'd be asking me some questions. So,
Do you have any questions that I could help to make it more clear for you with the assignment?
I don't really need to know, but it just seems like it's kind of like a social-based assignment where you're asking questions, kind of like a sociology type thing.
Yeah, so right now in this class, it's about interracial relationships. Just learning how people are different with their culture, their class, their race, their identity, their sexuality, things like that. And so this is just a way for me to interview someone who might look at things a little more differently than I do.
Okay.
So that's kind of the nature of it. What name were you given at birth?
Paul William Helms Jr.
Junior, not the third.
No.
Okay.
I got the suffix of junior.
Okay. And how old are you?
I'm 41.
41.
Yeah, I had to write that down for myself when I saw that the preparation.
41 years young?
Yes.
Okay. Do you have a religious or spiritual affiliation? And so, if so, what is it?
I am a Christian. So I keep it pretty broad on that. I'm a member of a Westland church, but I don't claim like a specific denomination. I'm more just Christian.
Okay. And would you say that being Christian means more religion to you or more relationship? Like,
I would say it's more relationship, but it's not pure relationship. Because I believe that if that relationship's strong enough, then you're going to have some laws and different things that you're going to follow, not just out of obedience, but also out of love and appreciation for the things that have been done for you.
okay. Growing up, what did your child rearing look like?
So I would say if I had to sum it in one word, it would be inconsistent.
Okay.
There was a lot of variation in my childhood. I experienced extreme poverty. I experienced times with comfortable financial times. There was also not just financial extremes. I went through periods of abuse and neglect. I went through periods of love and nourishment. It was just really all over the place. There was times where I felt safe, times where I didn't know where my next meal or where I was going to live the next day. It was just a lot of extremes. So that would be the best way to sum it up. I would say that there's a lot of hard times like anybody else, but there are also some good times and things kind of help prepare me for who I am today.
When it came to all of those times of like not knowing where your next meal was going to come from, was that mainly as a child or adolescent or?
It was mostly as a child. I had a little bit of that in my early 20s, but not much because I had a lot more control over that. I could get my own income and find ways to get my own meals. But as a child, I was a little more dependent on that my parents
Mhm.
to get that. My father wasn't always around at that time. He didn't live. I didn't live with my father most of the time until adolescence, and yeah, we just. I was pretty young. I would say in the 4 to 6, 7 years old range. At different periods, there might have been some times where I wasn't sure when I was going to eat again or where it was coming from.
And how did that make you feel? Like, do you remember?
There were times where I was sort of scared, but I think I adapted pretty quickly. I think I've learned that I've had the ability for adaptation more than most. So, and maybe it's because I was already going through a lot of things at that age. I felt like it was normal at the time. I didn't realize that it was that much different because I was so young at that time and I didn't experience the comforts yet at that point. I didn't realize what it was like to that degree that I could remember. I know that there were times of somewhat comfort before that, but I didn't really remember them that much. So really it was just, for me, it was more calculating, like kind of thinking, okay, if I can't eat now, when I can, I'll make sure this. And I also had a different kind of heart where I had a little sister and my mom, and then another little sister where I was more worried about when can they eat again. So that was my bigger concern at the time. And I know my mother was worried about things at the time too, but I put a lot of the stress on me since my dad wasn't around, that I was kind of the man of the situation. And I really felt like I needed to step up. I didn't really understand what that meant at the time, but I had an image of what maybe a role male should be. But it was all kind of formulated in my head because I didn't really have a role model to go by at the time. So,
Okay. Where was your dad, may I ask?
He moved away. He had moved to, he lived like a couple hours away from us during some of that. And then another period of it, he moved to another state. It was about 7, 8 hour drive away. So he was moved to New York while we were in Ohio during some periods of that. So we moved around quite a bit around Ohio and other parts of the country. So he was just kind of out there around different places.
Did he ever come around?
Yeah, I would say I would see him at least a few times a year around that time. If there was a couple of years where I saw him more frequently, and then I would see him maybe once a year when he was out of state. There was a couple of summers where he went and visited. So then I would get some communication with him. Probably not as frequently as I would have liked, but I always just kind of accepted it as what it was. My sister was my only other full-blooded sibling. She did not handle it that way. She was always complaining, and that's typically like I would get a birthday card on her birthday because she was more adamant about getting the birthday card. So he would just, I guess, save the stamp and send both birthday cards because her was about a month and a half after mine.
Okay.
So
I guess convenience.
Yeah.
All right.
So that way he didn't have to hear a complaint because he knew he wouldn't hear me complain if I didn't get something. I didn't really. I've always kind of accepted that people will give or won't give, and it's not up to me to try to make.
Even as a child, do you think you felt like that?
Yeah, I accepted that pretty quickly. I knew that there were times in my life where there was no one coming to help, no one coming to do things. So I stopped expecting people to do things and just appreciated when people did help or did step in. But I realized that there's times where you're not always going to get something. I mean, there's times where, as far as like getting a next meal, I had to find it on my own. And sometimes it wasn't exactly the most legal way of acquiring food. Okay. And as a child, it's kind of a hard reality to accept that, like I got to do this wrong thing to get something that I need. But I also realized that no one was just going to come and find me and give me what I needed. Right. So I had to go and get it.
Okay. Do you feel comfortable answering that question, or did you feel comfortable?
I'm okay with it. I've made peace with it. I'm not saying that there aren't challenges emotionally with confronting those type of things, but I've had to make peace with it to be comfortable with myself as an adult. So it's a journey I've already had to go down.
So you would say you felt comfortable sharing that, though? It didn't
Yeah.
get you too emotional or make
No.
you feel any certain way?
No, I'm okay.
Do you view your child rearing, your childhood, not your current parenting, as common for your culture and economic status?
No, only because of the variation. Because I feel like there's a lot of people that go through poverty, a lot of people that have comfortable lives, and they may go one direction or the other, but I don't feel like a lot of people have experienced childhood where it's back and forth like that, where you have poverty, then comfort, and poverty and comfort. I don't believe that a lot of people have experienced it that way and been exposed to a lot of different types, like where they're up and down. I would say that the exception may be like foster children, where they may go from home to home, and some homes are better than others. But still, my situation is a little more unique because most of it was with my biological mother, and some of it was with my biological father, just a small part of it. So
were the other families around you in your neighborhood or friends that you knew, how did their economic status with their families or culture look versus yours?
Well, we moved a lot. So there was a lot of different neighborhoods. I didn't get to know a lot of families in a lot of neighborhoods I lived in because we just moved so often, and I was super shy. I didn't talk to anybody. So I didn't really get to know there. I did get to know some of them, and I would notice that the culture and the economic status would be very different in different places that we lived, and that my comfort level and the level of finances that we had would impact the type of people that we were around as well. So like when we had more money, we would be around people that would have more money. But those kids, when I would talk to them or when I did finally get to relate to them, they were used to that style of life and I was not. So that was the difference. And then when I was in the poverty, they were used to that life. And I kind of was too, but I knew that there was a different type of life. And a lot of the kids then, they thought that was the only way, which is where I was at before when I first time went through it. So it's like, that's what I would notice is that most of the kids I was around, they were comfortable in where they were at because they were always there.
So you don't think you really noticed what kind of neighborhood you would live in?
Times
that you moved.
When we had more money, we lived in a nicer neighborhood, a nicer home typically. And then when we didn't, there was periods of homelessness even where I didn't know where I was sleeping. But there was, when we did have homes we were living, they were not as nice. My mom liked to keep things clean. Well, if we did have a place, like she was not like a dirty person, or what someone would categorize as a dirty person. She liked to keep things clean, but we didn't have a lot of the nice things that other people would have. And people may label us as dirty just because we weren't as well off as them. Because we would wear like the same outfits, like multiple times a week because we didn't have a lot of clothes. Or
right.
There was a time where I remember having a little tiny black and white TV, and we were excited to get a black and white TV, little tiny thing with rabbit ears, because whatever all the other kids were having, like that were at the school, would talk about watching TV on a big colorful TV, and I didn't care, but I just noticed like, hey, that's okay. These kids have more things that I don't, but I didn't worry about it. But when I did have money and had things, I think maybe it helped me appreciate that more. But I saw other kids would have those things or even more in my neighborhood, but they didn't appreciate it. They always felt like they deserved more.
Did it bother you to hear them talk about that stuff?
No, I think it didn't bother me because I think my sister was kind of that way as well the whole time. She always felt like she should get more. So when we did have times where we weren't as well off, I would sacrifice more than her to kind of help compensate that, to kind of appease and like kind of help things get a little more comfortable with my mom. But I guess my mind works a little different than most people in that situation. I guess I feel almost sorry for them that they don't have an appreciation for the things that they have. I would try to understand where they're coming from instead of just automatically judging them and saying, hey, this isn't right. Because I've noticed living in different economic statuses and cultures that different people have a different way of thinking because they only know what they've been exposed to. So if you haven't been exposed to this or that, you don't understand it. And you think that your situation could be better. And you don't realize how much worse your situation could be.
I think for some individuals, it's natural for them to look at somebody who has more than them and almost envy them and be jealous of that and wish that they had that, versus how you think in the sense of you felt for them because they didn't appreciate what they had.
Yeah.
And that's a different way of what most people look at it. So.
Yeah, I'm not immune to envy. There's times where I'd be like, yeah, it would be nice to have that, especially when I was exposed to having comfort and then I would lose it.
Right.
Like, yeah, it'd be nice to have a nice warm meal and a nice bed, and like there'd be nice to be able to have all this cool stuff.
Yeah.
But then I would think, but at least I have this, and at least I have that. Like there'll always be something I could cling to. Like, you know what? It could be worse. I could be homeless again. You know, like I could be out there cold. I could be trying to steal some food because I don't have any.
Right.
I'm not doing that right now. So that would make me be like, but they don't know that.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where I would come from in that. But even today, I'll look and be like, oh man, it'd be nice to have no debt or be able to go.
Yeah.
But I've also seen like people with more money, and I'm like, they still have problems.
Yeah.
It doesn't solve everything. So I'm like, I'm just blessed with what I have been given and the skills and talents that God gave me to be able to pursue what I have now and be able to support my family with that. So
I imagine there's some people though who have a lot of money and they're in more debt than what people who are in debt don't have a lot of money are.
Yeah, and I haven't talked to every wealthy person out there. Obviously, I don't have access to them, but just in my studies, it seems like a lot of people that are very wealthy are not extremely happy.
Yeah.
And whatever your definition of happiness is, but it seems like there's always more. You're always wanting more to get more when all your focus is on wealth. So I've learned to try to take my mind off of that and kind of like, I would like to have more.
Yeah.
I want my kids to have as much as I can.
Right.
I want my wife to feel comfortable, but I'm also blessed with what I have, and I'm content saying, hey, at least I have this.
Right. Versus maybe something that someone else doesn't have, or someone does have it, but maybe they're not happy with that. So, is your parenting style similar or different from your child rearing?
Very different. I joke that I learned a lot of what not to do growing up. With that being said, my mom had her periods of time where she struggled. She made choices that she probably shouldn't have made. Different things happened. She brought people into our lives that probably shouldn't have been there. But she loved us. And I don't say that lightly. Like, she genuinely loved us. And there's times where she would give anything. She sacrificed anything, her own dignity, to provide for us and to give us what we needed. So I give her all the credit in the world with that. She showed me what it is to like love and sacrifice for love. So that part I've taken with me.
You say that's like similar kind of?
Yeah, I would say that's a similarity where I've tried to take that where I'm like, okay. She also had a belief in God the entire time. She strayed like a lot of us have, but she always had that belief in God and wanted to instill that in us, especially at certain time periods. It was kind of inconsistent, but I've definitely learned that from her, where I have my own beliefs in it. Our beliefs in it are a little bit different, but I've taken that from her. And on my dad, I would say the similarity would be we have somewhat similar personalities. We are both kind of even keeled, kind of low key. And I've learned from him where he's learned from some of his mistakes, tried to rekindle relationships even after he's failed, where he was kind of missing. And then he still tried to reach out. I ended up moving in with him when I was a teenager, saw how he was with his other 3 daughters that he had with his second wife.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say that I learned a lot more of how he was a father to them. And I've kind of emulated some of that, how he was with his daughters and how he tried to be to me at that point. It wasn't the same, of course, because so many years had passed where it wasn't that. But I still have a good relationship with my dad to this day because of things, and I've always wanting to forgive. And so those are kind of the similarities I've taken from. I wasn't really specific on how he was with his daughters, but he was just like very loving, kind-hearted, like free, like always joking with them and playing with them.
Just much different from what you experienced.
Yeah. And he would do that with me when he was around me.
Yeah.
It was just, I think there were some issues with my mom and him and the divorce and things where I think he felt so hurt that he had to distance himself from her and the situation. And I think, as much as I hate to admit, I was kind of collateral damage in that.
Yeah.
And I don't think he thought that through at the time, but looking back, I'm like, okay, I can see how you would feel that way. It doesn't excuse it, but it kind of gives me peace on it. I'm like, okay, I understand where you were doing. I understand why. And then you went and started a whole nother family. It was almost like he was running from it, but that's another thing I learned not to do.
Yeah.
I've had issues with my own marriage. I made kind of a pact with myself long ago. I would be there for my kids no matter what. I would be stable for them at all times. There would be stability for them, a safe place for my kids at all times, no matter what's going on. So I never had, my mom was always there to a certain degree, but she wasn't always the same. So it was not consistency. It wasn't stable. So I wanted to make sure my kids always had that. They always had someone in their life that was stable, always there for them. And I've tried to be that person for them. And I feel like I've achieved that. And that part I'm kind of proud of, mostly not because I want to get recognition for it, but because I've seen the fruits of that labor in my kids. So I love seeing them flourish in that and having that place and seeing the way that certain things change them and help them. So that one I have definitely changed. And I am always going to be there for my kids. And I think that's the biggest change that I'm making. And also, I made sure that they've had financial stability. If I've had to sacrifice working extra, I've made sure I've went and got promotions when I'm able to. I've always made sure that they've had a home, a meal. They don't know what any of that's like. I explain to them what it's like to not have it, but it's not the same as experiencing it.
Right.
I try to teach them to appreciate what they do have. Sometimes they do have to earn some things. I try not to overcorrect. I'm sure I have in the past at certain times, so I've had to realize that and learn from it. Everybody wants to spoil their kids if they can, but those are the things where I'm like, okay, these are the things I didn't have as a child. I want to make sure that they have them, and most of that's just security and stability.
I think it's a little harder today for kids to appreciate some things because it's just like a matter of wanting more and more expensive and more of. But
I think that's been around, honestly, even in past.
Yeah.
I would say that there are still kids out there that appreciate things because there are kids out there that are still struggling.
Yes.
There's still kids out there that need help. They don't know what it's like to have a meal every breakfast, lunch, and
Mhm.
dinner. They don't know what it's like to have a comfortable bed to sleep in. They don't even know what it's like to have a video game console in their house or
Right.
TV where they can watch TV all the time. So there's kids out there that still appreciate it.
I guess I mean like the kids who do have that.
Yeah,
Sometimes, they'll get something and then it's a matter of like wanting to upgrade on that based off of maybe
I
what
could
other
see your
kids have
point,
that.
but I think that existed even before. Like I said, I would go to cultures where, like different areas where when we had some more money, and a lot of my friends were always, and I would get stuff from my friends because they're like, hey, I got a better one now.
Oh yeah.
I don't even
Yes.
want
Yeah,
this.
you're right.
And so I'm like,
Maybe
really?
just in a different way. But,
Yeah.
but yeah.
They're like, I would get like hand me down clothes and shoes from kids because they're like, I'm tired of wearing it.
Right.
I'm like, what?
Yeah.
I'm like,
You just think it was the coolest thing ever though, because
I'm like, you just upped my
yeah.
you just gave me a pair of pants.
Right.
Like that's 25% of my wardrobe now.
Yes. Yeah.
Like you don't understand how
Right.
much that means. And like, you're just wanting to give it away because you're tired of them. And
Yeah.
you've got,
Especially if it was a certain brand
yeah.
and they were just like, I'll get, a new one. And
Yeah.
for you, that's like gold.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's the difference. And I think that existed back then. I think now maybe you may see it more when you surround yourself with certain people still. I think if you went with and saw some kids that weren't as well off, you probably see more of what you saw in the past, kids that appreciate it and they're just happy to have it. But I will say that from when I was a child and now, I would say that the government has stepped in a little bit more. There's a lot more benefits out there for people. Certain neighborhoods, I think the churches have invested more, having more options for different people, but it's that depends on where you're at, really. But I think that there's a lot more programs out there to help people now. So maybe that's made a little bit of a difference to kind of close the gap on some of that. But
Yeah.
I think there's still a lot of poverty out there where kids would appreciate those things.
Okay. Are you feeling okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you have a gender preference?
Pertaining to myself?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just a male. I feel like my gender preference is what I was created as. So as a Christian, I believe in creation. I believe that God created me to be a male, and I'm gonna be as much of a man as he wants me to be. I mean, I think there's a lot of stereotypes out there and what that means to be a man, what it means to be a woman. I'm not really gonna say all that and say all this masculinity and all this different things. I'm just gonna be a man. So whatever that means, then that's what I am.
Okay. And would you say that you, being a man, your gender preference as far as like, your wife or someone who you long to be with is a female?
Yes.
Someone who was born a female?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I would. Yeah.
And what is your racial identification?
I'd be identified as a Caucasian or white.
Male?
Yeah. Human.
Human? What is your marital status?
I'm married.
For how long?
We are at 13 years.
That's good.
Yeah. Yes, it is. We've made it this far.
It's not easy.
Nope.
Do you have cultural beliefs that are specific to your culture that you currently practice?
I guess what would you define as cultural beliefs? I know that there are some cultures that have some extreme beliefs, like women are not allowed to speak,
Right.
Not allowed to show their faces. Obviously, I'm not a part of any of that. I would say that our culture in the United States, I'm pretty aligned with freedom, and having the right, being able to go work and earn your living with your freedom of choice. So a lot of that with the liberties and freedoms that we've been provided, I definitely align with that as a cultural belief.
So you mentioned like cultures who have extreme beliefs. Like what? Give me an example of what culture you would consider and that have extreme beliefs.
Well, I would say a lot of them. There's specific cultures, but there's several out there that where women have no rights at all.
Mhm.
So I believe in a little bit more equality than that. So that would be one extreme. I think that's pretty extreme to say women have no right to speak. They have no right to.
Because there's people in the United States who have extreme beliefs still that have
Yes.
different cultures that maybe were from other countries or
Correct.
have descent from other countries, and they still practice though
Yes.
what their descents
and that's-
practice.
And that's why I said culturally, but it comes from the culture that they grew up in. And I've actually talked to like people from Somalia or in other parts like the Middle East where their women, they cover
their faces,
completely.
yeah. Heads, faces.
And underneath all that, not that they showed me anything because that would be against their beliefs, I could relate to them in a lot of other ways. So they were still some were really good people. So it's really genuine. Same with like, I've met a lot of people from India, and like they have the practice of putting like the dots,
like
the red dots on their head and all that. But like, I've never let that bother me. I think my upbringing kind of helps with that, being exposed to a lot of different cultures and different things, different, I think, economic status. Only because I feel like once you realize that your different economic status is the biggest separator beyond anything else, the rest of it gets really minimized. So like all that stuff, even though it's extreme cultural belief, I don't believe in the belief, but I still believe in the people, if that makes sense. I still love the people, still appreciate them for who they are outside of that belief, even if I don't agree with that.
Is there a specific social class category you feel you fit in?
I would say like economically, I'd be in the working class. My job would be considered somewhat blue collar. I literally wear a blue collared shirt. So
you do, don't you?
Yeah. So that's part of that. I would be towards the upper middle tier of the working class, I would think. I'd say that's probably about where I fit.
Are you comfortable and content being in that social class?
Yes. Like we talked about before, I would like to be able to be more comfortable. It would be nice to not have to worry about any debt or having to work overtime to compensate for unexpected things. So but at the same time, I understand that there are other sacrifices I could make to get to that, and I have chosen not to sacrifice those things. More like time with family and different things like that, being an active dad, active husband, that those things have taken priority for me. My faith has taken priority over making some of those sacrifices. So I understand that and know that I've chosen those things over being in that class. So that's kind of helped give me comfort, knowing that I'm not just pushed down and kept from being any higher.
Okay. Do you feel like you'd want to be in another one, in another social class? Like, would you prefer to be in another social class, or?
I guess it'd be the same answer, kind of like, it'd be nice to have a little bit more money. But I think a lot of people would say that, even the people in this classes above me. So I'm comfortable not making the sacrifices that it takes to get there. because the time with my wife and kids is invaluable. I can't put a dollar sign on that.
Right.
Although I do have to work overtime and sacrifice that sometimes to accommodate things that we need. I'm not willing to make enough of those sacrifices to move up into the next class. And at this point, there may come opportunities in the future where those sacrifices are shrunk down to where I don't have to make as big a sacrifice to get to that point. That'd be great if that opportunity presents, God willing. But if not, then I'm comfortable staying where I'm at and continuing to try to do the best I can.
Are you the sole provider for your family?
I am.
Is it a lot of pressure, do you feel, being the sole provider?
Yes, but I welcome it. It's not something I take lightly, but I also take pride in allowing my kids to have their mother at home at all times. There's a lot of things that she has worked in the past during different time periods. And her working showed the kids lacked some things just from her not being home. There was things missing as far as like learning how to do some things, or like I would say like with their schoolwork, just basic tasks like tying your shoes, different things like that were kind of getting dropped. We're still working on some of that with one of them, but just things like that. It's invaluable having at least a parent home to be able to do those things, take kids to the doctor, go to things like that. So it's a lot more convenient with that type of stuff. And I feel like there is a positive impact in having a parent do those things rather than someone like some of the upper class with like a nanny or somebody else, because it's just a different feeling when it's your own parent. And I think it really helps that connection. I also think it helps her relationship with the children. And I also feel like it doesn't make her feel like she has to be part of that financial burden. Now, when all of our kids are in school, and if she wants to work, it's always an option for her.
Right.
I don't force it. Not saying that I could anyway. To throw that out there, not saying
force it.
that I could make her stay home, but it has worked out the best for us when she has been home with the kids. We've played with the idea of me being the stay-home parent, even me homeschooling them. Just financially, it just wouldn't work. The amount of money that I could make compared to her, that's significantly more. Not just because I'm a male,
right,
but because of the skills that I've acquired over the years.
And the training, I'm sure.
Yeah, different trainings and stuff I've been through, just different things that I've been able to do. It's allowed me to have opportunities to make significant more money than what she would. So, although if she was the sole provider and we had to struggle, we would do what we had to do, but it's just better for me to do it and then her to stay home.
Okay. You kind of answered this earlier, but the next question says, as an individual, how do you differ from the main male figure you grew up with?
Yeah.
So
it's just being present at all times.
Providing consistency.
And I say the main male figure pretty lightly if I say my dad, because I had a stepfather for on and off for quite a few years as well. But I never really had a male figure in my life consistently my entire childhood. Like he was just there was not that presence always there. So that's the big difference. I'm always there for my kids.
Okay. Do you feel that being a white male gives you an advantage or disadvantage in society?
Both.
How so?
I would say because of a lot of the old thoughts in class and everything, a lot of people are more comfortable with a white male in certain positions. When they talk to different cultures, maybe they're used to the way that a white male may talk, his presence. So it gives opportunities in certain situations where it might give you the slight edge if everything else is pretty much even. With that being said, I think our culture has grown to kind of realize that it should be merit above all else. I'm not naive to think that we don't have a lot more growing to do, but I think that we've come a long way in that area. If you look at statistics, a lot of white men are at the top of a lot of companies still to this day. I don't think that's a problem that needs to be like addressed head on, like, because I think if you force other people in, which is the other side, that's where I have a disadvantage. If I struggle, there's not a lot of opportunities out there for help. There's a lot of minority and even women-based programs where if you're a white male, you just don't qualify. You don't qualify for any of it.
Do you feel like that would be a disadvantage?
Yes, I think that would put me at a disadvantage. I don't complain about that, though. I don't think that needs to be fixed. I don't think that I need to have that be fair and have just as many programs for white men.
It's just something you notice.
Yeah, I do notice it, and I'm okay with that. I'm okay with, like, if even if all the cards were stacked against me and saying, like, okay, I have no help programs and people just don't want to hire me. I guess the way that my mindset is okay, that's my hurdle. I'm going to do what I have to do to get over that hurdle. I'm just going to accomplish it. You're not going to stop me. I'm going to get the job that I need to get. And that's just my mentality. But I also can understand that as a white male, a lot of people in different groups would look at me and say, easy for you to say. You're a white male, which is another disadvantage because it minimizes the impact of my opinion in certain situations. I'm okay with that because I'm not out here trying to change everybody's mind and trying to make everybody think the way that I think. That's okay. I still love and appreciate those people, and I still hope that they have success. So.
In knowing some of my past, how do you feel we are different?
Different
and the same.
And the same. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I say you asked different first. I would say differences are our experiences. I think my experiences are maybe a little more broad and varied, going especially different places. From as far as what I know about you, most of your experience has been pretty local here. So that's a little bit different. I was born in another state, lived in several other states, experienced a lot of different areas, even in this state. So that's a big difference. I would say that most of, well, that's not even fair to say. I was going to say most of my trauma, or like at least abuse-natured trauma, has been relegated to my childhood. Mm-hmm. So that would be a big difference. Because I know some of yours has been in young adulthood as well. So that would be a big difference for me. Similarities, I'd say that we both had some rough times as children. We both had what some people may consider atypical upbringings. So that's something that we could relate on. And I would say that both of us have used a lot of those experiences to try to learn what not to do and how to correct that and be different for our children. So that I would say that that's something we could relate on.
Are you content with your sexuality? Which I know is a complete different question from the last question,
That's
but
okay.
Are you content with your sexuality?
Yeah, 100%.
Okay. And how does your sexuality make you view others?
Well, the way my beliefs are, I'm a married man, so I view,
And you're married to a woman, as we
yes,
established
I view
earlier.
my wife as my sexual partner. Anybody else, it's just a more, I'm thinking of a word, I had it on the tip of my tongue, just more of a non-sexual relationship. So I guess I would look at men and women outside of that. Obviously, there's going to be some barriers out of respect for my wife, where like certain situations where I'm not going to be like alone in any kind of situation with a woman that could be considered. They could have any suspicion surrounded it. Around it, I would understand that would give her a little bit more anxiety. So that situation I would stay away from for that purpose. Whereas being alone with another man, she doesn't really have a lot to worry about in that situation. She knows that. So not that if I was alone with a woman that I would have any kind of like temptation to do anything. It's just out of respect for her, to keep her from worrying about anything. That would be something that I would consider. Outside of that, it really doesn't change my relationships with men or women outside of my marriage. So,
Okay.
and I would say that another part of that may be that you would think as a straight male that there may be some judgment on people that choose a different lifestyle. I don't really have that outside of my religion. So, like out of my faith, I believe what the Bible says, and that's. But I also believe that what the Bible says about it's not my place to correct or judge people based on their choices in that.
Do you feel as a male that you are inferior to females?
Absolutely not. I don't feel like I'm superior or inferior. I feel like we're equals. I feel like that we have different roles. I think that I'm inferior to women in some areas. I feel like I'm superior to most women in other areas. But I don't feel like that overall that I'm better or worse than a woman. Obviously, the biggest inferior thing about me is that I could never bear a child. That's huge. Even if you are not a person of faith, that's procreation is how we keep living. That's how our race exists. So without women, it's not possible. Whereas a male, if they had enough in a bank, don't even need us in the process. So that's a huge, huge thing that women will always have that trump card on men. But outside of that, I feel like there's a lot of things that men are better at in general, with exceptions. And I think there's a lot of things that women are generally better at, with exceptions. So,
Okay. Are you comfortable with your identity?
yeah.
Okay. Would you change anything about who you are?
I don't like the word change, improve.
Improve?
I don't feel like I can fully change who I am in like as a whole, but I can always improve and adapt, change things about myself, like small things. Like the difference for me, I guess an example would be that I would not change that I have above average intelligence, but something I have tried to change is when I articulate that in a conversation, I want to make sure that the other person doesn't feel like I'm more intelligent than them. Like I don't want to project that, hey, I'm smarter than you. I want to value their opinion, make sure that they feel that they're on the same level with me, that we're two people in a conversation, that I'm not talking down to them. That's something that I've tried to change, because before I would come off matter of fact, just kind of get to the point, it would be kind of no emotion. That calculated response can also lead to people feeling like judged or lower than me. And it's not something that I'm okay with. I don't like that. I want to make people feel better when they walk away from the conversation. So that's something I've tried to change and improve.
Okay. So that's all the heavy questions. The last few questions are pertaining to the interview itself. So how did I make you feel? And did you feel uncomfortable about any topics?
No,
And if so, which topics?
no, I didn't feel uncomfortable about anything.
Okay.
Kind of an open book. So I don't feel like I was always that way. I feel like there was probably a time in my life where I was a little more guarded, but I've had to learn that it's not always good to be that guarded, and sometimes you have to just process that stuff. That way you feel like, I guess something I've talked about recently is I used to worry about like feeling judged or different things in situations, but then I realized like when other people, like, they can't hurt me. Nothing can be done to me that hasn't been done before. So no, nothing made me uncomfortable.
Did I make you feel discriminated against at any point?
No.
Doing pretty good, aren't I? No. Do you feel that these conversations should or should not be had on more of a regular basis?
Depends on the situation. So I don't think these conversations should be forced, because words on deaf ears don't mean much. But if people are open, I think there should be an openness to accept others and be able to hear other people's stories, be able to understand how other people view different things in culture, understand other people's opinions. Even if you don't agree, you can respectfully disagree and still appreciate that person outside of that opinion. Kind of like I talked about with certain things and choices that other people make in their cultures that I don't agree with, but I still respect and love those people for who they are. So.
Okay. And then lastly, is there anything you feel that you need to share with me? Anything else? And you feel pretty confident about this interview?
Yeah.
Feel comfortable?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I thank you for your time, and thank you for doing this for me
No problem.
and helping me out.
No problem.
I hope you have a good rest of your day.
You as well.
Thank you.